Hey guys, welcome to this week's podcast episode. And I've got a expert guest for you today, Cody McLaughlin, coming from the beautiful state of Alaska. And he is a podcast producer. He's going to talk to us all about content creation, the influencer economy, monetizing your brand, your influence. And I'm really happy to welcome Cody to the show. Welcome, Cody.
Thank you for having me, Dr. Lou.
Yeah, so I know we had, I know you, and for the audience, kind of talk about your background, how you got started, how you can help the audience, really briefly, 1 to 2 minutes.
Yeah, sure. So again, thanks for having me. My name's Cody McLaughlin. I am the executive producer and founder of a couple of different podcast networks. The main one is the Trout Stream Studios Podcast Network. It's an outdoor-focused and science-focused podcast network that just centers around honoring kind of ecological efforts, environmental efforts in the great outdoors. What does that mean? Executive producer of a podcast network. It just means that I work in the creator economy, creating content and doing content marketing. I got my start in that very early in my career. Started in politics, actually, believe it or not, working on political campaigns. Yeah, that's everybody's favorite story. Got tired of the political game. Started transitioning out. Saw a tremendous opportunity in the explosion of the podcast space, and it's really early in that space. There's a lot of interesting things going on, big technological advancements. So I put all my eggs, as it were, in that basket. Started doing more content marketing, consulting, and then produced a tremendous slew of top charting shows. So I've gotten 9 global chart toppers right now, 1 top 70 global trending show, and just had a tremendous career so far in podcasting, mostly around science, but everything from business and entrepreneurship to kids and family to education to environmental science. So that's really the coolest part about working in podcasting for me is the ability to just learn something new every day, to be in a space that I love and really help educate people in such a growing kind of content space. It's not TikTok, right? It's not 30-second, 60-second short videos. I'm getting to work with top experts in fields and really truly long form content, allowing them to tell their entire story, which I think is just, I think there's very few higher callings at the moment.
Yeah, that's a really interesting introduction. And so we'll dive right into the conversation. And one thing is, I'm always exploring the new undiscovered territories. Like, now there's artificial intelligence, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. And so, talk about the beauty of a podcast and how you can expand your reach with a podcast, because people are saying, like, I first heard of podcasting in 2018. I was like, yeah, I have to go in on this because this is a new thing. Talk about, your approach to building a podcast to market your business and your channels.
Yeah. So there's a number of ways to use podcasting as the centerpiece of a content marketing strategy, right? So the podcast should be where a lot of your content lives and is generated from. You can use the video functionality. I mean, this is being recorded in 60 frames per second, 4K, thanks to my Razer Kaio Pro. You look like you've got a pretty decent camera setup as well. And then, but you can create really high quality reels as long as I stay centered in the frame here, which is what I'm trying to do. I tend to shift around a lot. Sorry. But you can create really high quality reels that can feed your social media strategy directly from your podcast in one recording space, right? Now, what does that mean? That's kind of a tactical thing. Let's go to more of a strategic discussion of it. Podcasting is really an underutilized way to establish yourself in your thought leadership, especially for doctors, right? Like your audience of doctors, tremendously underutilized tool to provide value back to your listeners in a way that's beyond just the doldrums of like business podcasting or entrepreneurship and stuff like that. There's a lot of those shows, including this one. But I think what a lot of doctors don't realize or haven't realized yet is that, you know, a lot of the work that you do lends itself well to a passive listening experience that will create, you know, fans who then give you social proof, who then, you know, may call you for consults, that sort of thing, or even just up your bio in your field. And, you know, medicine is a tremendously interesting and kind of in-depth subject matter that I think more people would be interested in hearing more about, right? So, you know, taking that opportunity and getting in on kind of the ground floor of this kind of medical science kind of like discussion, talking to experts in the field, you know, giving your opinion on new studies that are coming out, that sort of thing in your field. Like if you're a cancer doctor, right? Evaluating studies, you know, dispelling myths for people, you know, educating people on, you know, aspects of a healthy lifestyle that maybe you don't get in your 15 to 30-minute consults at the office, right? Like giving them a backlog of content to review so that you can be coaching your patients in their daily lives without having to schedule time to talk to each one individually, because how much of your advice really applies to pretty much all of your patients, right? These are all things that a podcast is going to do very well and that you can really deploy as part of an overall wellness strategy for your clients. So, you know, there's nothing stopping many physicians from unlocking podcasting using, say, a private RSS feed for your patients, where you're giving them kind of overarching advice that's not available to the public, right? On a membership model, or, you know, or kind of coupling that in with, you know, private consults, that sort of thing. There's just so many interesting things to do with it. And podcasting is really the centerpiece of a lot of those strategies because it allows you a number of things. Number one, allows you to have a really good excuse to talk to people that starts a really warm conversation with them. So that brings them in as a warm sales lead. And then on the flip side of that, it also allows you to establish yourself as an expert in a field by giving you the runway to talk at length about, you know, the things that you want to discuss, right? That you're passionate about, that you have expertise in. And there's always a listening audience for that. So that's kind of the 30,000 foot view. Why I think podcasting is really important to the medical community. And I'm excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, I have a lot of questions. So, you know, for the audience, we love these bite size, you know, 1 to 2 minutes. So I love your 5-minute overview. And so, you know, we're going to dive into the specifics here. So, you know, one thing is talking about is what are key elements that make your podcast successful, and how do you tailor your strategy to different genres and audiences? Because you've had a particular niche that you talk about, and you've been successful. So kind of talk about just key elements, and like I said, just keep your answers like 1 to 2 minutes so we can move forward the conversation.
Sure. So the key elements to your podcast. So I'm gonna give myself 5. Okay. So key elements to your podcast being successful. Number one, and really the most important one, is your listenership experience. You need to be providing value to your listeners, and with high quality media attached to it, right? So good microphone, you know, the investment of a couple $100 in a good camera, a good microphone, which really are not that expensive. Taking the time to prepare notes ahead of time so that you know what you're talking about and kind of you're not winging it. And then, you know, that time that you spend outreaching to guests and planning the story that you're trying to tell, right? Have something to say. Those elements, if you get those right, everything else is going to come along with it. So that's my advice for making a successful podcast. Have a maniacal focus on a great listenership experience.
The moving on is the other question that, you know, quite commonly is because podcasting is, it's a very intimate, like people, it's not like it's not like social media. It's like people actually tune in and listen. So the other question is, all the audience is talking about growth and they want to grow and scale. So kind of talk about in the early days of building your podcast, how you build that brand, how you build that channel, like because a lot of the audience they're perfectionists, so they basically think they have to do all these things and they never get started, and then they basically get pod fade. So how do you avoid pod fade?
I'm gonna start over. So avoiding pod fade, in my experience, I've worked with 38 hosts at this point. A lot of them, are subject to pod fade, and I think it's a very common thing. Just to identify that real quick, that's just when it's fatigue, right? That sets in over the doldrums of running a podcast. So organization is key there, making sure that you are recording on a schedule, right? Regularly scheduled, like 1 hour recording sessions that are on your calendar every week, even if you're not recording that week. So get your time back if you're not recording that week, but have it on the calendar. Okay. That is the number one way to avoid pod fade. You can also use some scheduling apps like Calendly and things like that to allow people to schedule through a couple of different times if you want to set some stuff aside. But for the most part, putting it onto a schedule makes it less of a very nebulous back and forth with guests, which is really a huge time suck for hosts. Having a producer and editor, especially if you're not technically inclined for that sort of thing, somebody like me, not to sell myself, but we make it a lot easier to do these things because we've got tools and resources at our disposal that allow you to be successful. So, everything from I can run your camera from my app on my computer, monitor the sound, that sort of thing, to make sure that things are, working optimally for what's going on, right? So like a good producer is worth their weight in gold, in my opinion. And then really from the launch standpoint, so podcasting is unique in that you can get a big bump from your launch in listenership and subscribers and stuff like that. And subscriber growth is what you should be focusing on early on. But, really your podcast really starts whenever it takes off, right? So, if you're bringing in listeners and you get a big, earned media hit or something of that nature that brings them to your show 6 months in, that's really when your effort takes off. And if you've got a big backlog of content when that happens, that's actually a good thing, because people tend to binge shows that they like, right? So you get to take advantage of the binge effect the longer you go on. Podcasting, seeing more and more advertising investment. So if you need to help grow in your show, there's some paid avenues to do that. But really, from an organic growth standpoint, too many people focus on social media, not enough people focus on podcasting. You need to be doing guest swap appearances with other podcasts. You need to be talking about things that are relevant, timely. And then you need to be utilizing the algorithms to put that content in front of people. So join a network, do some cross promotion on other shows, and use the SEO is really an important part of it. Use your descriptions, use your titles to get that content in front of the people who are searching for it by keyword packing your show notes and your titles with the things that you're talking about, so that they get in front of the people who are actively looking for that content. That's my advice.
Yeah, those are really great advice. And it's like, I've seen podcasts like, a lot of shows and channels professionally done. And, in the beginning, they just kind of get the content out there. And then as they get better and better, and they have they start to, invest in more equipment, and they start to, do what you talked about, which was, get the word out, marketing, all of that. And, now there's a lot of really good professionally produced shows, much almost like a, radio or TV network. So, the next kind of as a follow-up, they talk about this idea because, I'm always looking at the future, and this AI I use ChatGPT all the time, and now I use like video editing. I use AI software as opposed to like actual editors. So talk about what impact you expect AI to have on the creator economy in short, medium, long term, and how can podcasters, content creators leverage AI to enhance their production and distribution efforts?
Yeah, so the key word that I'm going to pull out of your question here is enhance. Okay, it's a tool, not a crutch. So there's some really good stuff that's happened from the AI revolution, especially for the creator economy. There's also been some really big setbacks to the creator economy because of AI and the outsourced brain bots as they were for people. So let's talk about what a few of those are. Editing tools, right? Adobe's Voice Enhance, Descript's Voice Enhancer, both tremendous tools that both make it easier for a novice editor to put out a high quality content, but also makes it a lot quicker for a professional like me to do twice as much work in a day, and therefore increase the capacity with which I can churn out shows, which means more money in my pocket, right? Or the same amount of money for less time and more time for me to go fishing. So I am 100% okay with that. I think Descript and Adobe are leading that space. I think there's a few other tools that are okay. You got to be careful about the fact that not all tools are built equally, though. Adobe's Enhance is a billion times better than Riverside's endemic Magic Voice Enhancer. So I wouldn't be using that. I'd be using kind of an Adobe or a Descript or something like that. But if you're using one of the big two there, I think you're in good shape, and it'll shave a lot of time off of your editing experience. And again, maniacal focus on listenership experience is the number one thing you should be focusing on at any stage in podcasting. Other AI tools, you mentioned ChatGPT. I'm a fan of ChatGPT and generative AI for content. There's some other stuff. Cast Magic is a good tool. Again, though, from a writing standpoint, especially, I have this fight with clients all the time. It's a tool. It's not your brain. You should be using it in one of two ways, either to get the first word down on the paper so that you can write the rest of it, right? Heavily edit anything that comes from a generative AI tool, please. It hurts my heart to read these terribly strung together sentences. The other way to use it is to take what you've written and then use good prompting to keyword pack using Google's search evaluator and other tools that you can prompt the generative AI tool to help you kind of rewrite that in a more keyword friendly, SEO friendly way. So that's one. I'll actually include that prompt that I use for you here, and you can put it in your show notes as just kind of a value add to your listeners. That's a great way to make sure that your episode's getting discovered. And then the third kind of bucket for the creator economy are the clipping and kind of social media content generator tools. Again, there's some good ones and bad ones. My top recommendations: Opus Clips is a big one. There's an endemic one to Riverside, which is okay because the editor is pretty good. But Opus Clips is a good one. And then Klaus.ai is another good one. So the thing I like about Opus Clips is that it actually tries to evaluate the viral potential of your clips. I don't know how much stock I put into it. It's not, it's a guide, not a Bible, right? But I think that anything that helps you understand the potential of the clips that you're selecting is a good tool to use.
Yeah, I love that. And it's what's interesting is I love how you said AI is a tool, and so you have to use it, but it's not going to replace your brain and your creativity. And it's 10x my output, but like I said, you have to kind of use that to streamline your processes so you can do editing or various different things. It's almost like an assistant right now, and it's saved time, cost, as well as been more efficient. So I love that. I know we have 5 more minutes, so talk about ways of monetizing your podcast, because I know I think people are aware, just like kind of talk about how you can use your podcast to increase your income or side income streams, affiliate income, all of that, and then how can people find you and reach out to you?
Sure. So monetization's got 4 major buckets. The first is your kind of standard ad-led monetization. It's where you're dynamically inserting at the hosting level the 30-second ads. It's a really good use case for, and especially in conjunction with sponsorships for physicians, because you guys could be reaching out to your pharmaceutical reps and stuff like that and allowing them to advertise on your show. You also have the subscriber-led model, which I already talked about. I could see a huge avenue for that with individual practices or like larger medical groups within a state that have a good followership. Up here in Alaska, my doctor's office is through Medical Network of Alaska. No reason that those guys shouldn't be doing a show that features their physicians with wellness advice, stuff like that. And then allows them to advertise relevant products at a really high CPM to people in the state who are able to make those purchases and who are involved, right? And then you have really kind of some of the tertiary stuff. So you talked about affiliate marketing, not as much, in my opinion, of a avenue there for physicians, because I think some of the sponsorship-led stuff is going to be a better, higher revenue choice for you guys. But definitely, some of the, using your podcast as a lead gen tool to start a conversation that allows you to move someone further down the line towards purchasing is certainly a good use for your podcast. It's a lot easier to get them on the phone if you say, hey, I want to interview you for my podcast, than for you to say, hey, do you want to buy this thing from me that's going to cost tens of thousands of dollars? Starts a warm conversation and then allows you to continue that conversation from a position of strength, right? So, and value provided, right? So that's the good way. So those are the 4 kind of avenues of monetization. If people want to reach out to me, as you asked, my company is called Trailblazing Studios. We focus on science and outdoors podcasts. We've done everything from entrepreneurship to thought leadership to PTSD awareness with doctors from the Veterans Affairs Administration. You can find us at trailstreamstudios.com. You can also find me on social media on Instagram at McLaugh1985 or on Twitter at McLaugh19. And you can find Trailstream Studios on all major platforms at just Trailstream Studios.
Yeah, and for all the audience, let's thank Cody for coming on and sharing his invaluable wisdom and insights. And be sure to give his socials a like and follow. Check out his company website if you're interested. And with that, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you, Dr.